How much money would it take to make you happy? Yeah, more than what you've got. That's a good answer. Um, Obviously, that's going to be a little relative to all of our situations. How much money would it take to make you happy? If I gave a 5-year-old a $100 bill, that 5-year-old would think they're loaded, absolutely loaded and set for life. Um, but if I gave a 25-year-old a $100 bill, probably not going to mean as much. Because the 25-year-old is going to go, hey, I appreciate the $100. I can get some food for this week. But I have probably at that time, I'm looking now at, getting a car. And what that means, I'm looking, maybe have some student loans. So if I gave the 25-year-old $100,000, they probably feel a little more comfortable with that. And then if I had a 45-year-old and I gave them $100,000, that's good. We'd take that, right? But probably the $100,000, we would put it toward the mortgage. Because now we got a mortgage, and now that's probably not even going to pay off the mortgage yet. So we still got a little more to go, right? So it wasn't mean much. So I'm going to give the 45-year-old $1 million. Anybody good with $1 million? Now we're good. We're going to pay off the mortgage. Going to go get what we need. Okay, so we're getting a little happier at this point. But did you notice how from 5 to 25 to 45 it changed? But at 65, we're looking at retirement, and we're thinking about legacy. We're thinking about what we want to pass down to children. And if you've got, I met a pastor this week, he had 8 kids. And so if I give him $1 million at 65 to pass to all his kids, all 8 children, it's not going to go very far. So what if it's 65, everybody's 65 and over in here, what if I gave you $10 million? Are we looking good? And if you have a parent in here that's over 65, are you happy right now? You see, I'm just trying to get you to understand that the way we value things is based on our situation, and how we value it is based on how we think about it. So the 5-year-old would not be able to comprehend $100,000. Let's be honest, a 5-year-old's probably not comprehending $100. But as we grow and we develop, the value of things begins to matter differently in our life. So there's a lot to be said about what we value and about why we value it. Now, Jesus knew the temptation to make everything in our lives of a great value. Satan, when he tempts him in the wilderness, what does he say? Look at all of this. I'll give all of that to you. You can have all of it. And there is a temptation for us to have all of it. And to think about what we value in the context of our situation and what we would like. Maybe we're looking at the dream home. Maybe we're looking at the dream destination. Maybe we're looking at the dream car. Maybe we're looking at whatever it may be. Or maybe we just would like to know that there is this much in the bank account that I don't have to touch. But whatever that means, we are thinking about value. And at some point, we have to make a decision. We have to make the decision and ask ourselves the question, what are we living for? What is it that you are genuinely living for right now? In Matthew 6, verse 19, Jesus, continuing this sermon, says, don't store up treasures here on earth. Now, why does he say don't store up treasures? Don't make the thing that you value the most something here on earth. He explains, moth and rust destroys them. Moths eat them, rust destroys them. And if everything you value is here on earth, a thief could break through and break in and steal it. And you could lose everything that you value in just a moment. Instead, he tells us in the next verse, store your treasures in heaven because moth and rust can't destroy it there, and thieves don't break in and steal. Now, why does he say that? The next part, he says, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is going to be. But how do you store up treasure in heaven? Well, let's talk about what heaven is for just a second, because most of us think of heaven as a destination. But if we think about heaven, instead of thinking of it as a destination, if we think about heaven as where God dwells, that changes things. In other words, what is of value to God and what is of value to my relationship with God, and as I dwell with him and I live with him. We know that Scripture says in him we live and move and have our being. So I need to learn to live with God on a daily basis. And if I'm living with a mindset that I am with God on a daily basis and I'm walking with God, that changes my view of where God dwells. He also said your life is hidden with Christ in God. So I am in God every day and I'm walking with God. And so now when I think about where I'm laying up my treasures, what does God value in my life compared to what I value in my life? Are the things that I'm laying up valuable to me only, or are they also valuable to God? And that changes my perspective in this passage. So I want to ask you two questions to start out this morning. You got them there in your notes. Question number one, just to make you think a little bit, what is your most valuable material possession? What is your most valuable material possession? I don't know. That could be a variety of things for us. That might be a car for someone. Last night, Susan and I were driving around, and this guy pulled in front of us over on the island. And I saw his car, and I knew this car had great value. And I told Susan, I said, I would like that car. I was talking, the office I work at in Jacksonville is right next to a Bentley dealership. Bentley, Alfa Romeo, and Maserati all together. And I walk by it at lunchtime, and so when I walk by, every day I just pick out which car I want that day. You know, and so some of you could care less about a car, though. You're like, listen, a car to me is just destination one to the other. So it's going to vary from all of us. But the most valuable material possession that you have, I want you to consider that for just a moment. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what do you value that is not physical? Maybe you can't touch it. But maybe it's more of a concept. Maybe it's more of a thought. Maybe it's more of something that's on the inside of you. What do you value that is not physical? Perhaps you can't show me a picture of that. Now, here's the reason I ask you these two questions, to get us to think this morning and to get us moving in the direction. The first question is kind of a common sense question that I'm asking you, because we attach monetary value to items. And we attach monetary value to items because they are necessary or they're desired. It is something necessary that I have. So I would say probably one of the top monetary value things that I have is our home. It's a house that we live in. And so that is a necessary thing that we need to have. Now, if I had that car that I saw last night, that would not be a necessity. It would be a desire. But it's something I would attach a monetary value to. So that's why I ask you the first question. But the second question I'm asking you is about value to you that no one else may be able to even understand. Maybe they can't. Why would that be valuable to you? Why would that be important to you? But it's also something that they couldn't take away. You see, you could take my house away. You could take my car away. But there's other things that I have that you could not take away because you can't put your hands on it. Those are the things that we start to understand the value that Jesus is speaking of right here. And so that's why I want you to understand this and to get this sentence this morning. Life is not about what you possess, but about what possesses you. It's not about what you possess. if we are living, have you ever seen the bumper sticker that says, "He who has the most toys wins"? That's a person that is controlled by possessions. And those possessions control them. But here's the deal. Jesus is saying where your treasure is, that's what your heart's going to be. He's saying, I'm asking you not what you possess, but I'm asking you what possesses you. What is it that is controlling and working and determining everything about your life? And then he goes through this thing, and if you look at the very next verse, 22 and 23, it may seem unrelated. But it's not, because he says your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep the darkness is. That is a profound word right there. If the light you think you have is actually darkness, wow, you're in trouble. That's real deep darkness. So in verse 22 and 23, I want to ask you another question. What does it mean to be spiritually healthy? What does it mean to be spiritually healthy? Does it mean reading your Bible every day? That's a step towards spiritual health, but is that alone spiritual health? Is it going to church on Sunday? Is it praying together with people? Those are all symptoms and steps of spiritual health. But spiritual health happens to mean what we are concentrated on and where we are focused. Now, Jesus is playing on something with the eye here, and you can do your own study on this. In Jewish tradition, there is a lot to be said about the good eye and the evil eye. And you can do a little study on that, but there was this whole thing about the good eye and the evil eye. And what Jesus is trying to say to them, okay, you have this whole tradition about the good eye and the evil eye. I'm saying to you, the good eye is healthy and is going to bring light if you are concentrated on what is healthy, if you're concentrated on what is good, if you are focused on the things that matter for you spiritually and that are going to make you better. So Susan and I were talking the other night, and we were talking about food. And every time health comes up, food comes up. And we were talking about that I don't know that the food necessarily we always eat is necessarily unhealthy. I think one of the things that we have a trouble with is the portion. Anybody with portion control? And it's like, okay, I can eat that, but the Bible says some things about moderation, right? And if I keep craving and craving and craving, there's nothing wrong with the thing in moderation, but as I keep craving, that is where, and so it's my mindset about it, not just the thing. The evil eye is concentrated on how this pleases me, how this makes me happy, how this satisfies me, and is not concentrated on God. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be. Most of us, our treasure is self, and so we keep looking into self. How can I please me? How can I satisfy me? What's going to accomplish this for me? And he said, when you're doing that, you're looking into the darkness, because it's all about how that possession pleases me, how that possession makes me happy, and not how, what can I have that pleases God? And so the evil eye, in this case, is looking into the darkness of self instead of the light of Jesus. And we've got to change our eyes. Give you a couple sentences. What you're focused on determines your mindset. What you are focused on determines your mindset. A lot of us have a messed up mindset. That is why the Bible tells us to renew our mind daily. The things that have happened in your life, the things that have shaped your life, have caused some of us to have a particular mindset. Some of you wake up every morning feeling completely defeated because you have lived in a defeated mindset, because you've been broken down and torn down by other things in your life. And so we wake up in the morning feeling like I'm a nothing and I'm never going to accomplish anything. That eye is looking at the darkness instead of the light. That's why I said to you this morning during our worship time, it is not about try, it is about do. Your mindset has to change that Christ has accomplished something so I can do that. Because as long as we are doing that, we will not flourish, we will not grow. I want to show you this picture on the screen. And if you look at this picture, I want you to see it. This is an area in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I want you to look at that for a second. On one side, you have what we would call the slums. And on the other side, on your right side, you have mansions. Notice each deck has their own pool. We are talking this tree line, this fence line is dividing these people. Now, here's what I want to ask you. On which side of the fence are the people flourishing? On which side of the fence are there communities that are flourishing? On which side of the fence are there people that are spiritually growing? You can't determine that by the picture because you don't know the people in those places. You see, we know that on the right side of that, my goodness, on the right side of that, those people are financially doing well, or at least doing better than the people on the other side of the fence. But your financial health does not determine your spiritual health. Your financial wealth doesn't determine your spiritual wealth. Flourishing means more than just how much you have in your bank account. And so what we would have to do is we would have to go into those communities and we would have to meet those people and begin to talk to those people. And we would find out what's going on in your life. What is your mindset? What is your heart? What has God done for you? And we would find out. Now here I want to give you one sentence. You can be both rich or poor and still either flourish or perish. You can be either rich or poor and still either flourish or perish. There are people that we would consider wealthy, that we would consider rich, that are spiritually flourishing. And there are people that we would consider rich or wealthy that are spiritually perishing. On the flip side, there are people that we would consider poor that are spiritually flourishing. And on that side as well, there are people that are poor that are spiritually perishing. You cannot determine that by a financial status. That's why Jesus is saying where your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. And the way that's going to change, your heart has got to change and your mindset has to change. And you've got to get your eyes focused on me and focused on what is important to me, not just simply what is important to you or this world. That's where the shift has to happen in your mind. So let's ask a third question, but before we do that, let's read verse 24. No one can serve two masters. It didn't say some people. It says no one can serve two masters. For you will hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. No one can serve two masters. So the question is, who do you serve on a daily basis? Who is it that you serve on a daily basis? Now, we have wrongly believed and have been taught that money is the root of all evil. Now, some of you are like, wait a minute, isn't that a Bible verse? There's part of it, but you missed a part. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not that money is the root of all evil. Being wealthy is not the problem. Everybody say amen. Lord, let it be so. Being wealthy is not the problem. Having a good job, having a good living, having a nice house, having all the things that are blessings that we would consider, That is not the problem. See, automatically we see people with wealth and we say, oh, they must not love God. That's not reality. Being wealthy is not the problem. It is when that is our only focus and desire, the problem comes in. And we read that. Paul talks to Timothy about that. Those that desire to be rich, that is their whole goal, that is their whole mindset, is desiring to be rich. They don't want me, they want wealth. Proverbs talks about that numerous times. But the Bible also tells us a lot about money and how to handle money and what to do with money. So if money was the problem, then God would just not let us ever have money, and we would just, but that's not what it is. Wealth is not the problem. In this verse, he said, nobody can serve two masters. The question we have to ask ourselves with the whole context of this is, who are we serving on a daily basis? Because who I'm serving on a daily basis is going to determine my mindset, and it's also therefore going to determine where I'm putting my treasure up. So who are you serving on a daily basis? Let me give you this sermon in a sentence, okay? And it's this. Your greatest enemy is anything that has control of you in your life other than God. Anything that has control of your life other than God. And I don't know what that is for you, and I have to determine what that is for me. What is it that is I am serving every single day more than anything else? Now, for you, for me, it might not be money. It might not be trying to get wealthy. So could it be more than money? He's using money as the illustration here, but money is just only an illustration. It's just one of a million things that it could be. For some people, it may be money, but some people it may be a habit. I'm living every day for that habit. For some people, it could be a job. I'm living every day for that job. That job is my whole goal. That job is my whole destiny. Everything is about that job. That job, I get all my gratification and satisfaction from that job. For some people, it could be a relationship. I am living every day for that relationship more than I am living for my relationship with God. That relationship has priority. That's all I think about. That's all I dwell on. That's all I concentrate on. And I'm living for that. I'm just using a few illustrations. It could be a whole lot of things. But that's where I'm putting my treasure. I'm putting my treasure in my money. I'm putting my treasure in my habit. I'm putting my treasure in that relationship. I'm putting my treasure in my job. That's where your heart is. And Jesus is saying where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So your mindset needs to change, because you're either going to serve me or that. And if you're going to serve that, it is going to leave you empty, because it will be snatched away from you. It will be taken away from you. You may have it for the entirety of this life, and you may die with it, but you cannot take it into eternity. And so live for me. Live with me as a priority. So here's what I just ask you to do as we close. Would you take inventory of your treasure? Right now, take some inventory of your treasure. What is it that I value? And is the thing that I am valuing in my life drawing me closer to God, or is it drawing me away from God? Is the thing that I value the most, does it have any eternal value? Is it going to last? And as I take that inventory, I have to be really honest with myself, and I have to be really honest with God, and I've got to say, I've got to live for something more. See, Jesus knew that he was about to ask this group of people to follow him. And they were not just going to follow him on a daily basis. They were going to follow him to his death and eventually their death. And he's saying, if you're going to follow me this way, you've got to determine what's the most valuable to you. If I were to take away the material possessions, if I were to take away the relationships you have, if I were to take away all of your job, if I were to take away all of those things, would you be satisfied still with God? Would Jesus still be enough? Where your treasure is, that is where your heart will be.